The Galactic Combined Military Academy on the orbital station Vethkara was not designed for humans. The corridors were 7 feet tall, the gravity set to 1.4 standard, and the Predator class, the elite combat track for species classified as Apex tier, operated on a training schedule that would liquefy the bones of most sapient beings before lunch. Which made it all the more bewildering when Nora walked through its doors on a Tuesday morning, carrying a duffel bag, a slightly crumpled enrollment form, and a thermos of coffee. She was 5 feet 4 inches. She weighed approximately 58 kilograms. Her species had only been in space for 11 years. The intake officer, a 4-armed Velian named Serix, stared at her form for so long that his secondary eyelids flickered. "There has been an administrative error," Serix said finally. "Probably," Nora agreed, sipping her coffee. "But the stamp is real and the deadline was yesterday, so." She had a point. Bureaucratically speaking, she was enrolled. And the Academy's charter was very clear: once enrolled, a cadet could only be removed by failure, injury, or death. The first was a choice. The latter two, they assumed, would happen naturally. Instructor Kale had trained Predator-class cadets for 19 cycles. He was Draxi, 6 feet 8 inches of gray-scaled muscle, with a threat display frill along his neck that could go full crimson when he was displeased. He had made soldiers cry. He had made soldiers quit. He had once caused a tertiary berserker to reconsider its life choices simply by making eye contact. When he saw the human cadet standing in formation between a half-ton Gorak warrior and a Kelvari ambush predator, he stopped walking. Not for long. Perhaps 3 seconds. But in 19 cycles of instruction, Kale had never stopped walking. The cadets noticed. Kale resumed his stride, circling the formation with hands clasped behind his back. His frill was carefully, deliberately neutral, a skill that had taken him a decade to master. He stopped in front of her. Name: Nora. Cadet Nora Vasquez, sir. Species: human. Classification: technically unclassified. We're new. A ripple of low sounds ran through the formation. Laughter, in 17 different biological expressions. Kale silenced it with one look. "You are aware," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated at frequencies meant to trigger prey flight responses, "that this is Predator class?" "Yes, sir." "You are aware that the Gorak standing next to you can bench press a dropship?" "I did notice him, yes." "And you are still standing here?" "That's generally where you stand when you're in formation, sir." Kale's frill flickered. "Just once." He turned and walked to the front of the formation. 0400 wake call. 7 kilometers, full kit, 1.4 gravity. Anyone who falls behind runs it again. Dismissed. She fell behind. Of course she fell behind. The Kelvari cadet alone moved at 30 kilometers per hour in full sprint, and the Gorka's stride covered more ground than Nora's entire body length. By kilometer 4, the formation was a smear of armored shapes in the distance. She kept running. Kale watched the monitors from the instructor station. Every cadet had a biometric feed. Nora's heart rate was 194. Her oxygen saturation was low. Her pace had dropped to something that could charitably be called a determined shuffle. She kept moving. She crossed the finish line 11 minutes after the last cadet. Her face was the color of a distress beacon. She was shaking slightly. She sat down on the track, drank half her water, and then stood back up. Kale pulled up her biometric data again. He ran a comparative analysis against his database of 847 cadets over 19 cycles. Her performance metrics were, objectively, in the bottom 2 percentile of anyone who had ever attempted this run. Her persistence metrics were in the top 3. Of all species. Ever. Week 2. Hand-to-hand combat assessment. Kale paired cadets by estimated threat tier. Nora, logically, should have been paired with herself, but there was only one of her. He paired her with Cadet Reth, a young Kelvari who was ranked lowest in the class, as a mercy. Reth outweighed her by 400 pounds and had 6 limbs. The match lasted 40 seconds. Nora lost, technically. But for 22 of those 40 seconds, she had Reth off balance, confused, and twisting after a feint that exploited the one angle his 6 limbs couldn't naturally cover. When he finally pinned her, Reth was breathing harder than she was. The other cadets had gone quiet. Kale noted it. Wrote nothing down. Made no expression. Called the next pair. Week 5. Psychological endurance simulation, a fully immersive environment designed to exploit each cadet's species-specific fear responses. For Gorik, it was isolation. For Kelvari, it was confinement. For humans, the Academy's database had almost no data, so the system improvised: darkness, cold, the sound of loved ones in distress. Standard completion time was 12 minutes. Most cadets tapped out between 8 and 14. At 22 minutes, the simulation's AI flagged an anomaly and pinged Kale's terminal. He pulled up the feed. Nora was still inside the sim. Her biometrics were elevated but stable. The audio showed her talking, quietly, to herself, working through what she was seeing out loud, methodically, like she was solving a math problem. Okay, that's not real. Mom's fine. She's fine. This is a room. I know it's a room. What can I actually feel? Floor. Solid. My hands. Real. Okay. What's the exit vector? She exited at 26 minutes, 43 seconds. A new Academy record. She blinked in the light, saw Kale standing outside the chamber with a datapad, and straightened immediately. Sorry for the wait, sir. Kale looked at her for a long moment. Do not apologize for excellence, cadet. It was the first time he had spoken to her outside of a formation command. She blinked. He had already turned away. The other cadets started calling her Grail Sova around week 7. In Draxi, it meant something close to the one who should not be here but refuses to acknowledge it. In the Academy's long history, it had been given to exactly 3 cadets before her. All 3 had graduated first in their class. Kale did not tell her this. But he pulled her simulation results, her run times, her combat evolution charts, and spread them across his desk late one night on the station, stars drifting past the viewport, the hum of the orbital ring the only sound. She was still bottom third in raw physical performance. She would probably always be bottom third. Her species was simply not built for what this class demanded. And yet the trajectory was unmistakable. Every week, she was less behind. Every week, she found a new angle, a new adaptation, a new workaround for what her body couldn't do with brute force. She had started teaching Cadet Reth how to read micro-expressions 2 weeks ago, and Reth's combat score had jumped 8 points. Kale leaned back in his chair and thought about the 3 words his own instructor had told him, 19 cycles ago, in this same building. Watch the ones who scare you not because they're dangerous, but because they simply won't stop. He filed his mid-cycle report that night. In the field marked notable cadets, he typed one name. Vasquez, Nora. Human. Predator class. Recommend elevation to command track evaluation by cycle end. Then, in the notes field, a space he had left blank for 19 years, he wrote 4 words. I did not expect this. The paperwork mistake was never corrected. No one tried very hard to correct it. And somewhere in the Academy's administrative archives, a misrouted enrollment form sat quietly in a completed file, the smallest possible domino, the most mundane of bureaucratic errors, that had sent a 5'4" human woman into the most dangerous training program in the known galaxy. She hadn't come first in her class. She'd come 9th. Out of 9. But she had graduated. And on the day the class received their postings, Kale stood at the podium and read names in the order he considered most significant, not by rank, not by score, but by what each cadet had taught him. He read hers last. Not because she was least. Because in 19 cycles, he had learned that humans save their best for the ending.